I sit here today in front of some very empty looking shelves to go over all of the series that I have either finished, DNF'd, or am currently reading as of my last update, which was at some point at the end of the year 2020, I think. I don't know. It's been a while, so I'm just going to update you on everything. I have finished a surprising amount of series. I'm very proud of myself. A lot of what I've been focusing on in 2021 is finishing the series that I'm already started in. There are so many different series that I do want to read, and I'm hoping to get through the ones that I'm currently in the middle of before picking any of those up. I think I've been doing a pretty good job of it so far, so getting right into the series that I have finished since whenever the heck my last update was. The first one is All's Fair in Love, which is a quartet of novellas, romance novellas by Erin Knightley. These are historical romance, all very cute. I read them all this year and I really enjoyed them. I finished the Anghara Hama duology by Alma Alexander. This was actually a reread of a fantasy series that I had read when I was younger. It wasn't the greatest. I think I actually decluttered those books, but I finished them. They were fine. They were okay. Just not something that I would really recommend. I finished the Gallagher Girl series by Ali Carter. This is one of the series that I absolutely fell in love with as a child, and I had never finished it. I read 4 of the 6 books. I finally went through, I reread all of the books, and I finished off the series, and I still really enjoy it. The last book, not so much. This book is the 5th book. I did actually really like this one. I really love this series. I've always wanted to be like a childhood spy. I'm way too klutzy and awful for that, but I can dream, and I did dream as a kid. So this is a series that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm so glad I finally finished it. I finished the Inheritance Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. This had 3 books, 1 novella, and 1 short story collection. I really liked all of them. This is my favorite series from her. Granted, I've only also read the Broken Earth trilogy. I like this one better. A lot of people say that the Inheritance trilogy isn't as good as the Broken Earth trilogy, but in my opinion, I like the Inheritance trilogy better. So I guess that just proves again that opinions are opinions. So read it if you would like. I really enjoyed it, and I'm very happy I finished it. I fully reread The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, so I read all of these, which is technically, this is one book and this is another, but whatever. I've read this entire story again. I really enjoy it. I love The Lord of the Rings. It is one of my favorite stories, and I watch the movies regularly, at least once or twice a year. I've watched them a lot, and I love them. I love this world. It's so much fun. It is the epitome of fantasy, and if you haven't read it before, I hesitate to tell you to read it because I know a lot of people do struggle with the writing style in this, but if you've never seen the movies, you should definitely watch the movies. And if you like the movies enough, you can try the books, because the books are very enjoyable as well. I finished The Brown Sisters by Talia Hibbert. This is a trilogy of 3 romance books, contemporary romance set in England, and they're very adorable. They're so sweet. If you haven't heard BookTube raving about it, I don't know where you've been. But I really enjoyed them, and I will contribute my raving review to the rest of the world who also seems to agree. I finished the Earthsea cycle by Ursula Guin. This is a total of 6 books, and I also really enjoyed this series more than I was expecting to. It's one of the classic fantasy series, and it definitely developed the further along in the series that you went. It started off as one thing and sort of morphed into another throughout the series, and I really enjoyed watching that process, as well as Ursula K. Le Guin's writing is just so beautiful. The world she created was very interesting, and I'm very happy that I read it. I wasn't too thrilled with it with the first book, but I continued on, and I'm very glad I made that decision to continue. I finished the Jumbies by Tracey Baptiste. This is a middle grade fantasy. It's a trilogy of 3 books. It's the sweetest little adventure story, and it has so much Caribbean mythology, which I find so fascinating. I love different cultures' mythology, so I had a lot of fun with this book, as well as the characters just being super lovable and there being so much like action adventure. It's a lot of fun. I think children would like it as well as adults. It's definitely made it to one of my favorite middle grade series ever. I finished the London Trilogy by Cherryh Thomas. I technically read 2 of the books and DNF'd 1 because I had 0 interest in it. These were fine. They're historical romance. I've read a lot of Cherryh Thomas at this point. I feel like I've found a few that are better from her than this series necessarily was, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and If you are interested in any of the premises, I would say go ahead and pick them up. I also finished The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This had 3 books and a short story collection. This is a Chinese-inspired fantasy series. It's grimdark, and I have mixed feelings about it. I really enjoyed the first one. I remember really loving the first one. The next 2, not so much, or at least the second one, not so much. The third one, I liked pretty well. Rin just gets kind of really annoying, and I was really fed up with her as a character partway through it. But other than that, the world is beautiful. The magic is so amazing. The grimdark is not necessarily my kind of thing. I haven't read any other grimdark before that, so this was my first foray into it. I don't know if it's quite for me, but I will read it if I'm in the mood for it. But I really enjoyed the series. I like how it ended. I really do like how it ended. The third book, while not being my favorite overall, had some really good points. It's just the characters, which is also part of the point, is to not perfectly like all the characters, but I was just getting annoyed. I am glad I finished it, though. It was a really good series. I also finished the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. There are 4 books in this. My favorites were the second and the fourth books. The first book was okay, this one, and the third book I just didn't like at all. But that's just because of the way that I consume stories, and I didn't really like how the third book was set up. Otherwise, they're all really good. I love the world that Becky Chambers has created, all of the representation, all of the different species, all of the intrigue. It's so very cozy and character-driven and so amazing. I don't really read much sci-fi, but these are some very good sci-fi for people like me who don't really read sci-fi. And the last series that I finished was The Witch Boy by Molly Ostertag. This is a group of 3 graphic novels, and they are so cute. The second one, I remember not being very great, but the first and the third books were so good. I love them so much. It's about a boy who's grown up in this family of witches and shapeshifters, and if you're a boy, you're supposed to be a shapeshifter, and if you're a girl, you're a witch. But this boy feels a little bit more drawn to witchcraft than shapeshifting, and it's so sweet. The representation is amazing, and I just love the sort of autumnal witchy vibes that this gives. It's so perfect, especially for like this time of year. I would highly recommend picking it up. I really, really loved it. I do have 3 series that I ended up DNFing, the first one being the Emily Windsnap series by Liz Kessler. This was planned to be a reread for this year because it's a series that I really loved as a kid, but I had never finished. I think she's actually still writing in it. But I tried picking up the first book again, and I could not get through it. The way that it was written was just way too young, and I could not deal with it. So, unfortunately, I won't be rereading that series again, although I remember really, really loving it as a kid. I'm just going to keep that memory in my head and not taint it with how I actually interpret the book to be today. So, that is going to be a DNF. I didn't even make it through the first book. A series that I did get through the first book, but I am still DNFing the series as a whole, is the Bone Witch series by Chupeco. I remember this book being just okay, the first book in the series, and I was not drawn into it enough to want to continue into the second book or continuing the series at all. So it was fine. I think the world was really interesting, but something about the way that it was told, I think, I did not get along with, and the format of the plot in general. I don't really remember much about it, but I'm sure I talked about it whenever I read it in my reviews. I think I vlogged it at some point. So if you want to know my thoughts, I will link that vlog, because I personally don't remember it right now, but I will not be continuing the series. And the last series I am DNFing after reading the first book was The Burning by Evan Winters. Unfortunately, this is just not a series for me. I don't really care about fighting, and the whole first book was just Tau fighting, and I had no desire, none whatsoever, to read it. I was much more interested in the world. I think the world was done really well. I just think the fact that you're stuck in this one perspective was really, really frustrating, because I wanted to see what else was happening in the world, and I couldn't. So I won't be continuing that series. I think where it ended in the first book would mean that I would like where it's going more for the rest of the series, but I just don't really have the sort of desire to continue it. So I won't be, unfortunately. I am sorry for everyone who loves that series. I didn't really find much wrong with the book itself other than just being frustrated with the perspective. So it will work for a lot of other people. I know a lot of people love it. So if you think that you will like this book, go ahead and try it. Tell me all about how much you love the series. I would be more than happy to listen, but I will not be finishing it myself. And moving into the series that I currently have ongoing, I have caught up actually in the Singing Hill cycle by Nghi. So far there are 2 novellas out. I am planning to read anything that comes out in this because it's a Asian inspired fantasy and it's so good. It's written so well. The prose is amazing. The descriptions are amazing. It feels so lush and magical, and I love the world. I love the characters. I'm very excited to continue in the series whenever Nghi decides to grace us with more. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it. It's very short. You can get through it very quickly, and your life will be so much richer for it. I have continued in the Discworld series. These are the next 2 that I've read. I have a whole shelf of Discworld basically behind me that I still need to read. I think I am on book 19 out of 42. This is an absurdist fantasy series. A lot of these books are either parodies or satires. They're very entertaining and they have a lot to say about the modern world. I really enjoy them and I am excited to continue on in this series. It's a classic. It's one of my family's favorite fantasy series and I am really enjoying it. I'm also currently reading the Fablehaven series by Brandon Mull. This is a middle grade fantasy adventure story. I have read 4 of the 5 books so far and I have the 5th book checked out from my library. I'm hoping to finish the series very soon because I am really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun, a lot of action, and so many amazing magical creatures. I really love all of the interactions and getting to know all of these different creatures in this world. It's so much fun. I think it's both great for adults and for kids. I would highly recommend it, and I'm excited to finish it. I am also currently reading the Fitzhugh Trilogy by Cherryh Thomas. I've read 2 of the 3 books and 2 of the 3 novellas. This has been pretty good overall. The novellas have both been misses for me, for sure. Like 100% misses. But the 2 books have been very, very good, and I've really enjoyed them. I really like the different characters and the situations. I don't go in knowing exactly what's going to happen, but all of her books and all of her series seem to be interwoven, so you get mentions of all the different pairings throughout her world and not just in the same series, so that's been a lot of fun. I really am enjoying reading through the series. I think Cherryh Thomas can do really, really well with historical romance. And I think sometimes there are some misses that she can do as well. So it's kind of luck of the draw with all of these books. I am enjoying reading them though so far, and hopefully I will continue to enjoy them into the last novella and the last book that I need to read from it. One series that I haven't made any progress on so far is the Fortress series by C.J. Cherryh. I've only read the first book, which is, what is this called? Fortress in the Eye of Time. I have the next 2 books. It's a 5-book series. I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet because I've been focusing on other books at the moment. This is a fantasy series. It's very, very densely written, which is probably why I'm steering a little bit clear of it, because I know it's going to take me a long time to get through even just one of these books, and I have another 4 to read. I do really want to read it though because I really love the world. I was very surprised actually by the first book. I will also link my review for it because I had originally DNF'd it and then I loved it. So I am kind of hesitant to go into it because I'm hoping I will actually love the next books as much as I ended up finally loving the first book, but we'll see. I am very excited for it, but I'm also scared at the same time. So hopefully I will get more into this series in the very near future. One series that I am currently continuing but that I may end up DNFing is Holidays with the Wongs by Jackie Lau. I read the first book of this 4-book series around the holidays in the beginning of the year, and I remember enjoying it. It was fine, but it also wasn't the best written romance I had ever read. I think it was just the fact that it's in Asian representation in romance is what really draws me to it, so I want to continue and see if I will continue to like them. I still expect it to be really fun, and it'll probably be something that I pick up more around the holiday time again, so we will see how that goes. Also in the beginning of the year, I started the Sexiled light novel series by Ameko Kairuda. This is a fantasy light novel series where you have all of the like warriors and mages and people going on quests and joining parties. It's sort of like an RPG except like in the real life. And she gets kicked out of her party by her party leader, who says it's time for her to settle down and have kids. And she decides, screw him, I'm going to get much stronger than him and kick his butt. So it's a lot of fun, it's very entertaining, and it doesn't take that much to read it just because it's a little bit more lax in its syntax and prose and sort of the whole way that the novel is written, because it's a light novel and not an actual like piece of literature book. If that makes any sense, if you're familiar with light novels at all. But I am really enjoying it. This is the only light novel series I've tried so far, other than just like little snippets of other ones that I haven't continued in yet. So I'm excited to continue it and see where it goes and maybe get more into the light novel world. I am reading The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. I've read 4 of the 14 books. There's also a novella, which I think you're supposed to read at the end. I haven't read that yet. This is a classic fantasy series. It has a lot of the same tropes as Lord of the Rings, but it also started a lot of its own tropes. It's been very influential in the genre, and I am excited to see where it goes. I've had some ups and downs with this series, but at the moment, I'm feeling good about it, just because the last book I really enjoyed. But we'll see where it goes from here. I know we're going to get into the slump soon at some point. I don't know exactly which books are considered as part of the slump and which aren't, and I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to go into the book already disappointed. So we'll see how it goes, but I am currently reading this. I plan to finish it. We'll see how far I get. And lastly, I am reading the Witchland series by Susan Dennard. I've only read the first book, and that was years ago, so I remember nothing. I do plan to continue the series eventually. I am going to reread the first book, but I think just because of the way that everyone talks about it and says that you need a lot of information from the previous books before going into the next books, and the fact that she's still writing it and there's a lot of time in between the books, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until a lot more of them are out so I can read them all at once and get the full experience, because I really did enjoy the first book. I just never continued because I don't know why. I read it probably in 2017? 2018? I definitely plan to continue it. I've heard a lot of praise for it, and I really enjoyed the first book myself, so at some point in the future, I will be reading those as well. And that's it. That's all of the series that I have either finished, DNF'd, or am currently reading. It was a lot of series, but honestly, most of that was in the finished pile, which I'm very, very happy about. I'm not actually in the middle of that many series, for me at least, or for BookTube in general, where everyone seems to start series and then not finish them. I'm trying not to do that. I really do want to finish the series that I'm reading, and if I don't plan on finishing them, then put them in the DNF pile, because I want to actually enjoy the entire story, how it's meant to be written, or meant to be read, I mean. So hopefully I will be able to keep that up, finish these series out, and then get to start some new ones. I haven't started a new series in a little bit, and I'm pretty excited. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what series that you are currently reading, or one that you just finished that you really loved. I would love to know, because obviously I need to start new series. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you later. Bye.